While you can tell it's an Edgar Wright movie from its style, it's a distinctly different film from anything he's ever done, right? A lot less humor, a lot more horror. So will Last Night in Soho measure up to his other movies, or will it be his last night in horror?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
No, that might be the worst one yet. So I'm going to leave it in, though, because why not? What is up, Flick fans? Welcome back to my channel. Edgar Wright, one of the most outstanding minds in the business right now, has a new movie, Last Night in Soho. We're going to talk about it spoiler-free in this video, and I need you in the comments down below. What is your favorite Edgar Wright film so far? If you'd like to see mine and maybe an Edgar Wright tier list, drop your thumbs up down below. Let's do it. An aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. But the glamour is not all it appears to be, and the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. Like I said, directed by Edgar Wright, starring Thomasin McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, Diana Rigg, Terrence Stamp. I mean, the cast is exquisite. And of course, the two of note are Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie, who at first, when I first saw that trailer, I said, are they the same person? Is she seeing another life? Are these just dreams that she's having? And the construction of the movie had my curiosity more so than I believe any part, maybe other than Edgar Wright directing it, but I was just really fascinated to see what kind of film this would be and to feel that originality going into this film and also feel it coming out is a really special thing that you don't often get with many directors, but you do get it with Edgar Wright, so that is expected. The characters of Eloise and Sandie. Let's start with Thomasin McKenzie, who I believe is just an extraordinary talent. And she plays a character who is so relatable because she's going off to school at the beginning of this movie, kind of leaving that family setting and ending up in a place that feels so foreign to her, one that she's just not familiar with, whether it be her classmates that surround her and just live a very different kind of lifestyle. And maybe, at least some of them, don't treat her the best. It's up to her to kind of find her place, an aspiring fashion designer, but also keep that positive mentality that we see at the beginning of the movie, and we get a little bit of backstory on her family, kind of where she comes from, what happened to her mother, and that gives us a bit of insight into how she's going to handle certain things because she's just not used to being in this big city, quote-unquote, setting. And once she gets there, the world around her is so big and so vast, it's just a very difficult thing to tackle. And then, on top of that, when she ends up in this apartment in the first act, she begins to have these visions or dreams of Anya Taylor-Joy's Sandie living this lavish lifestyle back in the 1960s where everything seemed, well, really everything seemed beautiful, but it was so distinct and different, from the music to the way characters interacted to just the overall style. And that style is one thing that I want to talk about really quick because Edgar Wright does such a good job of allowing you to distinguish, even though it's very easy to distinguish otherwise, down to the camera movements and color palette of the 1960s scenes compared to the now scenes, and the amount of color and just beauty that goes into those flashback scenes is just incredible. Some of the most visually stunning filmmaking I've seen all year. On a technical level as a whole, I believe this movie works extremely well. The music, Anya Taylor-Joy gets her shot at singing one of these songs, and it's on YouTube if you want to go check it out right now, but just seeing that in context was fantastic. That classic Edgar Wright look, that is present in all of his Edgar Wright isms. Is that a term? No. They're there. But it feels so separated from the movies that we've gotten prior. And I said the same thing about Baby Driver. It's just going in a different direction compared to his Shaun of the Deads and Hot Fuzzies. Hot Fuzzies. Because this film leans more so into the horror genre. And while I never found it to be scary, like I wasn't jumping when we were getting certain things, it does go pretty much full horror in the third act. Now, it mixes in different genres, absolutely, and I loved the balance of all of those things. But once we get into that third act and we start to figure out the story behind this character of Sandie, where that progresses and what Eloise kind of morphs into, the more she experiences this other girl's life, because she honestly starts to become, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but it is playing playing a major role in her life. It's inspiring her to change her look, to make herself look more like Anya Taylor-Joy's character. And then it starts to factor into what she's doing with her fashion design. So all of those things, it's changing her, it seems like, for the better. And then as the movie progresses, you start to see the horrors of this other girl's life and how that starts to creep into the life of Eloise. She encounters things. She's seeing things. You get this imagery that was haunting. There were points to where that imagery and just maybe the CGI aspect of this movie, it was a bit more on the cheesy side than maybe I believe Edgar Wright wanted it to be. But overall, it gets the point across, and it does a good job of building that suspense. And then once we get into the third act, that suspense does pay off. Now, there are two things that happen in the third act. I'm not going to spoil either one. One of them was really predictable. There's something about a character here that we realize, and I did see it coming, and I saw it coming like in the first act. I'm saying, okay, this is going to happen, and it happened. But then there's something else that comes almost completely out of the blue. I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. And in that vein, and I'm not going to spoil anything for you guys, in that vein, I said, okay, I did see that, but I didn't see this. And I think that's the beauty of Edgar Wright is even when the writing leads you to believe one thing, there's always another twist, turn, or just incredible comedic beat. Not as much of those in this film, but he's always doing something as a director to impress you. And that was the moment in the third act, even though I believe the third act is the weakest of the three acts because it's the one that tries the hardest to lean into the horror genre, and it wasn't all that scary, even though it was definitely intense and thrilling, and it does hit a lot of plot points very quickly, whereas the first two acts, it's taking its time to build up, you're learning more about these characters, and then a lot of stuff happens in the span of like 25 minutes. So I do wish there was a bit more care and focus within that third act, but the movie was already fairly long, so I understand why he didn't want to go even longer. Regardless, the fact that it caught me off guard, it surprised me, and it went in a direction that, again, makes it feel like one of the most distinct movies I've seen all year, maybe the most distinct movie I've seen all year, and originality is key with a movie like this. Edgar Wright really captures that with Last Night in Soho. Before I give you guys my score, if you like this video, be sure to drop your thumbs up down below. We're on the road to 100K, and we're getting close. Last Night in Soho has a little bit of everything. The performances are excellent, the visuals are spectacular, and there is much more to the story than expected. It doesn't quite end as strong as it starts, but this is unlike anything else you will see this year. My score is an 84% for Last Night in Soho. I just love an original story like this. The cast is great. Edgar Wright is awesome. Find out where this falls in his filmography for me in my tier list coming this weekend. That is, if you want to see it. So like I said, drop your thumbs up, leave your comments. I would love to check out your lists. And as you see on screen, these were your predictions for my score. Some of you guys nailed it. Appreciate you for trying. I'll see you soon.